Welcome back to Good Morning Maine. I'm here with Barbara Ford. She's here to talk about a very important documentary film screening that's going on tonight and Saturday about PTSD in first responders. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me today.
Of course. So what's this documentary about?
Well, it's called PTSD 911, and it's a really great documentary series that's done by Conrad Weaver, and he is a film producer who's done many important, relevant documentaries about things that are happening in our nation. And this is about first responders who repeatedly experience trauma-related experiences in their life and then have PTSD.
Right.
They often don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And we just assume they experience that occasion and then they go on and they're fine. But they repeatedly experience trauma, and then they have this PTSD, and then they have depression, and they don't get the treatment they need for it. And so he has three individuals that he follows and talks about their trauma and their depression and how they cope with that, and talks about how do they get help, and the importance of different communities and the government coming behind these people and giving them the help they need so that the suicide rate behind first responders decreases over time.
Yeah, because it seems like these traumatic events are their normal. So that's their mindset as well. I just got to keep going on, and the support can sometimes be something that they have to make for themselves.
Right, and they're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid they might lose their job if they talk about that they're really struggling, or what are people going to think about them if they say, I'm cracking up here. I'm having a difficult time. And particularly, one of the things they found is like dispatchers have a very difficult time, and people don't think about the dispatchers. They take that call, they hear that person screaming into the phone, but when they hang up, they don't know the end result.
Yeah.
So they hear the trauma, they hear the screaming, but they don't know what happens at the end, where the paramedic or the police officer may see the outcome and know everything ended up okay. Yeah. But the dispatcher might not.
I never thought about that. And this adds a really personal meaning to you as well. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. The third subject in the movie is my daughter, Nicole Ford. And she lost her battle to PTSD last August by suicide.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really, and then that's a secondary trauma for family members of first responders.
Yeah.
How do we cope with the trauma our family members are going through? And that's also in the film, one of the subject matters, Maddie, he talks about, how his wife coped with his PTSD.
Right. And Nicole was she was an advocate for stuff like this, but still.
She was working for NAMI and doing training and education on how to support people so they were not suicidal.
Yeah.
And we had no clue.
Yeah.
And part of my work is working with people who have suicidal ideation, and my husband works with veterans with suicidal ideation. We had no clue.
Yeah.
She was very type A. She was an overachiever, and she was an advocate to make sure that people got what they needed so they didn't end up in that situation. And, in the end, she felt she had nothing more to give. And it was very devastating. And if there's one thing we can do, we can be advocates for other first responders. And I'm very excited about the event. We have an event here in Bangor on Saturday night at 6:30. It's going to be hosted at Cross Point Church.
Free of charge, right?
Free.
Yeah.
And typically, when they've been touring all over the country with this, and there usually is a charge, but we want this to be free. If you work in a helping field where you see and you absorb other people's trauma, come. We want you to be there. We'll have support people if you need support. And we want you to see this film. It's very important. And we want to encourage you to get the help you need. And
great resource opportunity.
Wonderful. Cross Point Church is allowing us to use their space. There's room for everybody. Come. The doors open at 5:30.
So, and there's one tonight too. I hate to cut you off, but we're almost out of time.
The one tonight is at the University of Maine in Augusta. And again, that's a free event. And so the doors open there at 5:30. The showing's at 6:30. we really need to come behind our first responders and people who are caregivers in our community and give them the proper support they need. We often hear of people in this field committing suicide.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what a devastating loss that is.
Yeah, absolutely. But Barbara, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. We'll send it over to Devin Biggs for our full weather forecast.